Excellent. Laurie, so it'd be great to get started with a little bit of your personal journey into the world of veganism. What's brought you here?
Yeah, I'd like to say it was one defining moment and I flipped or like a video or something, but it really started out as vanity. That's pure and simple. And I honestly, I can't tell you my journey without divulging my age because I'm a little long in the tooth. So um, when I was about 15, okay, so I ate like teenagers eat, I ate the McDonald's and Big Macs and, uh, Carl's Jr. In fact, it was the Western bacon cheeseburger that I used to love. That was the last hamburger or piece of meat that I ate. And I stopped growing at 15, 14, 15, and I got chubby. And so I went on a diet I stopped eating the really bad for you, meaty, fatty foods. And, 6 months later, I was thin. And when I tried to eat it again, just because it tasted good, or my friends
Mm,
would be at a McDonald's or Burger King or something, it didn't sit well with me. I no longer had the desire. I guess the desire wasn't as strong as it used to be, and so I got pretty sick when I tried to eat meat again. So it then I stopped eating chicken maybe about 6 months later. So I was 16 now at the time, and this was
mm,
the 80s. Um, so there wasn't a lot to eat if you go vegan or vegetarian. At the time, I was vegetarian,
right.
and and then I saw an expose on, I think it was like 60 Minutes about chickens. And then I thought, oh, I don't need to eat that. So, long story short, what it did was it broke the cognitive dissonance. So, I
Mm,
started out, I've always loved animals, but I had the cognitive dissonance that most people have. I just would make excuses to eat them. And once you break the cognitive dissonance, it's just hard to go back. And so I often hear people who do it for vanity reasons, and I don't poo-poo that. Whatever
mm,
brings you to that point. And then I would say about 20 years ago, again, vanity reasons. One of um, my dermatologist said, "Oh, you should really cut out dairy. It's really bad for your skin. It's bad for inflammation." And again, did it for vanity reasons. And then that's when I started to open my eyes about, the horrors of dairy farming and all of the nasty
mm,
ingredients in dairy. Um, and then so what evolved as kind of an ego uh, contention, it became um, really one of the love of animals, and it just doesn't I just don't want to be a part of that. I think it was Jane Goodall or somebody said, but my body will not be a tomb. um, I'm probably misquoting that. I don't know whoever said that. It's true. It doesn't, I don't need it. I don't miss it. It was certainly hard, in the early 2000s when I was full blown vegan to find things to eat other than, the tofu and
mm,
brown rice and, stuff like that. We had very limited food back then. But I did it, and of course now living in Los Angeles and having these stores that have a plethora of vegan options available to me. I don't miss it at all. And as I'm getting older, I'm now in my mid 50s. I started to become more aware of the health aspect of it. So again, I don't poo-poo, some of these like, processed foods. I think it's great that we're moving away from meat, and that's if that's the gateway or if that's what's going to help
mm,
people, land in a place where they become better cooks and they really pay attention to what they're eating. That's great. But about 2 years ago, again, with the inflammation and just not really feeling like I have a lot of energy, I started to eat more like whole foods, and I learned
mm,
how to cook. And And I have a great, I'm in a great area for fresh fruit and veg because, uh, I grew up like a few minutes from some of the most fertile land in the country. And so we have year round fresh fruit and veg. So yeah, it's all good.
Thinking back to the 20 odd years ago when you sort of decided to make the full transition to veganism, and obviously you mentioned that options weren't so prevalent back then. But what about the reaction from those around you? Were people around you fairly aware of what you were doing? Did you have already a bit of a ready-made community around you, or did you have to kind of find one?
No, I've frankly never growing up, being a vegetarian, I didn't have a community, at least not a community I identified with. And, if you were a vegetarian in the 80s, 90s, you typically lived in an area which I call Topanga Canyon or Ojai, lovely areas, beautiful areas, but there's a high propensity of, earthy, patchouli, wearing, hippies. Love the hippies. No,
Yeah.
no problem with that. But you kind of fell into that bucket of, maybe um, you spent a lot of time aligning your chakras and, that type of stuff. Um, but I really I didn't have any family members or any friends who were vegetarian, and then certainly not vegan. I was kind of seen as extremist and kind of, a little bit of an outcast, and I've always have been, so it didn't really change. It didn't sway me either way. I didn't feel like, oh, I'm left out. I've always felt like I march, you know, to the beat of a different drummer. Um, so I grew up in Mexican American. I'm Mexican American. And I grew up with my mom cooking, like everything had meat in it. If in fact my dad said, if there's no meat at the table, it's not really a meal. Um,
Mm.
we had the chili con carne and the pollo and everything. A lot of Mexican food that my mom would make, and she's an excellent cook. But not a lot of vegetarian or vegan options, certainly. In fact, my mom treated it for many years as a fad, and every now and then she'll like be pouring cream into the coffee or tea, and I have to remind her. And so it was difficult. Now I don't mind it because obviously there's so many, you know, veganism has is in the mainstream now. It's thankfully, good or bad, it's super cool. It's everywhere. And so now I find my siblings, saying things to me like, "Oh, I tried, Beyond Meat, or I tried an Impossible Burger, or I tried this restaurant and I ate vegan, or I'm making a vegan dish." So where I was made fun of, now it's like I kind of inside I'm like, haha, I was right.
Thinking of obviously, as you mentioned a couple of times, that the health at certainly these like pivotal points in your journey was a key motivator. Did you find people responded more favourably to you when you talked about health than perhaps when you talked about, I've seen this documentary about how the chicken industry operates or how the dairy industry operates?
Yeah, for sure. So there's another cognitive bias, a confirmation bias, and people don't want to. They put up their defenses and their hackles if you mention, the way that the animals are treated, and it stems from not wanting. They don't want to believe that they're part of this, or they think that it's coming from somebody extreme. So yes, they know about. And I'm just thinking about how I talk to my siblings. I'm close to my siblings. So how I talk to my sister, for example, about, how the chickens are treated and the male chicks. And she doesn't feel this way now, but there was a point where she would say, well, not the chickens that I get. Clearly it says here on the label that it's, they're, having a good old time until their number's up. Or you see the advertising, and I've been in advertising my whole life, so I get um how this happened and why it happened. But the happy cows,
Mm.
living in the California sunshine, and everything's rosy. I it's just not true. So yeah.
As you mentioned, it obviously the cognitive dissonance created by advertising and so on, and perpetuated by advertising. Be interesting just to get your thoughts on it. How do we sort of in the quote unquote vegan community fight against that? I mean, there's such big budgets behind those kind of advertising, and that sense of, this is organic and it's farm raised, and in fact, I saw an advert in the UK recently it's called the Eat Balanced campaign, and the campaign is sponsored by the meat and dairy industry in the UK. And the whole campaign is this around this phrase of like eat balanced, essentially saying if you're not eating meat and dairy, then you're not eating balanced. And they've put massive TV campaigns and so on into this industry. Obviously, to me, in the community, it smacks of desperation. But a lot of people are watching that. I'd just like to get your perspective on how do we, when we're still so small in numbers, fight against that?
Yeah, that's a tough one because it didn't happen overnight, right? This has been going
Mm,
on for decades and decades, of really brainwashing people into thinking what's healthy and what isn't, and having people, even the medical community, it's ingrained in their heads. Not everyone, obviously. We have doctors who are a lot more savvy and who are um, who are definitely pro a plant-based diet. We've seen the numbers; it just makes sense, right? Um, it's been going on for decades, and it is the muscle. It really is policy. It is the laws. It's the subsidized farming industry. It's the lobbying. It really has to change at that level. Simultaneously, I really do believe that these plant-based companies should start a kind of a coalition like the dairy
mm,
industry and got milk, and they take those big advertising dollars and they create campaigns, and they don't just do digital ads, and then there are campaigns that are television spots, radio, print, outdoor, experiential. I mean, they're everywhere. And it hasn't been, I know that Tesco, I mean, the UK is actually a little bit more advanced than us, and maybe it's because it's a lot smaller and a lot more
mm,
affordable to do, I forget if it was Tesco or Sainsbury, but there was a really beautiful television spot of a father making vegan food for his daughter, and to me it was perfect. It's just getting in the hearts and minds, right, and and coming up with a narrative
mm,
that works. And you know what? Personally, I've always felt this, and this is why I got into creating my own marketing and advertising and PR agency. Is they're hiring the wrong people. Unfortunately, vegans would a vegan business will hire either a cousin, a friend. There's like a group of people that are maybe animal rights people, and they're lovely and they do some amazing things, but that's not their craft. Their craft
mm,
is not developing, strategic advertising and marketing campaigns, communication campaigns. Um, it took me. Uh, I started out 30 plus years ago in advertising. It took me a good 10 years to figure out what I was doing, and probably another 10 years to be super good at it, right? And so I see these people that they're hiring, and they're just not the right people to get that level of creativity, that level of strategy out. Um, so combination, and maybe they're, I know because I've, the last 6 years I've had my own agency. I know that they're looking to, at first it was they're looking to other vegans,
mm,
right? And then the pool is really small of vegans that
yeah.
have like deep advertising experience. And then friends, family, other vegans, animal rights people, and And then they're going to big agencies, and the agencies that they're going to, because now they are starting to go, right? They are going to big agencies. I know um, a few plant-based, pretty global businesses that are hiring these agencies that I used to work at, and the agency doesn't get it. So it's really hard. The agency doesn't get kind
Yeah.
of the ethos and what veganism is about and the history behind it. And so I think it's hiring the right people, hiring the right strategic senior level marketing people at their businesses, and then hiring the right partners to bring them there. And I don't see that. I really just don't. I mean, there's maybe a few people and businesses that I've seen hire the right people, but for the most part, they don't, and that's unfortunate.
Like you say, it's a difficult thing to balance, I guess. It's really intrinsically understanding the ethos, what it is that makes those who are either on the verge of veganism, vegan adjacent, or are vegan themselves, what makes them tick, what's going on if you're not in that world already, and marrying that with years of experience
Experience,
in advertising. I mean that's a pretty
right?
tricky one to get. Um,
Yeah, so you see that a lot though. They like advertising, they'll think, I've done some TikTok videos, or I've I have, you know, however many followers, or they think it's like that's just a small tactic in marketing. In the big picture of marketing, bringing something to market has 500 different aspects
mm,
points of understanding and aspects of successfully bringing something to market and making it a a product that's set up for success, and is bringing in has longevity. And then I think also they're looking for a quick buck. Like right now, with all
mm,
of the kind of everything like amped up with, oh, let's invest in this, and we're going to go, we're creating the bio that, and the you know 3D printed that, and that's great. I'm not slamming that, but it's just seems to be like it's like everything is fast. And I think
yeah,
that's what led, everything's fast and will throw a lot of money. And so kind of like it's all like kind of how the tech, it is mirroring the tech of how it
yeah.
was like, let's try to break things, and you know keep changing and moving fast, and the older I get, the more I wax nostalgia for quality, and thinking things through. And my partner, who actually is my husband as well, we for Watson's, we really wanted to do something right. We're not looking to become wealthy. We certainly have a mortgage and a lot of rescue animals that we have to pay for, but we we don't want to do things fast. We want to do things well. We're concerned with quality, and doing things the right way. And um, and yeah.
Let's talk Watsons as we're there. Like, what was the genesis of Watsons? Where did it come from? Tell us the story.
Yeah, sure. So one of one of the ways to God, there's so many places my mind is going. One of the ways to get people to eat vegan, to help break the cognitive dissonance, and to make people understand that it's not as difficult as they you know feel that it is, and that you're satisfied, you're completely satisfied, and in fact you feel great, and you're happy with what you're eating, is to make things taste good, right? So seasoning is one of the core things. It's not, barbecue doesn't taste delicious because it's the meat. The barbecue tastes delicious because it's the seasoning, it's the hickory smoke, it's the sweet and salty, it's the umami in it with the tomatoes. Um, so I started to cook more during the pandemic, as most people in the world have, right? We're
Yeah.
cooking more. We're not going to the restaurants, we're cooking more. And what I found is I would find a recipe, um, it would have all the spices you needed to, create said recipe, but it would be a lot of spices. So I looked in my spice drawer, my spice cupboard, and it was just full of spices that I know I was going to use maybe once or twice. And then you always had to mix it. Like if you're going to create that, you need these three spices, maybe you're out of that one. And I thought, there's got to be like a better way. And the other thing was I like to keep my spices in front of me. Um, when I'm cooking, and I leave them on the counter, and they're, it's not very attractive. I'm very much into, aesthetics are important to me in the home, and I like mid-century modern, which is kind of clean and streamlined. And so I thought, it would be really nice to have some go-to seasoning blends that I don't have to think about it. If I want to whip up some lentil soup, or, a veggie burger, or some, barbecue something, I just go to that seasoning. And it would be great if if it looked attractive. It was just an attractive, container. And of course the ingredients. I mean, we wanted the ingredients to be clean. We wanted it to be traceable. Because seasoning, I don't know if you know this, but seasoning is one of the dirtiest foods out there. And I say dirty meaning, yes, it could have, pieces of cardboard in it, or dirt, but it also is mixed with other seasonings, right? You're getting, so let's say you buy a
Right.
seasoning blend at the grocery store, and you think you're getting one thing. It's very much like buying fish at a restaurant. You think you're getting this fish, but you don't know. And so, um, man, most seasoning is very dirty. So we wanted a clean seasoning. We wanted the growers to be paid fairly. We wanted to source the ingredients, wanted the ingredients to be organic. And people pay a lot of money for food, but seasoning is kind of an afterthought, or they'll just get any old seasoning. And it's like, well, good
Yeah.
seasoning is important, right? It's just as important as the food itself, the ingredients, the main ingredients. Um, so there was that aspect. And then also I manage, the gift giving for a lot of clients for I'm the marketing, um, stand-in or consultant for a lot of companies, and I'm always looking for those companies to give gifts to their key clients. And I thought, you know, candy, plastic stuff, I don't want to do that. I think, seasonings would be a great gift idea. It's great to have, on your shelf in your house. You feel good about it. So that's how Watson's was born. And I'm hoping that more people learn how to cook, aren't afraid of cooking. They don't think of it as daunting. Obviously, I want them to eat plant-based and cook my seasonings with, plant-based foods, but you could use it for anything really. Um, and um, if they have to, our seasonings could be added to store-bought burgers. Like for example, we have a blend called Yumami, and we did a taste test, and we put the Yumami on, Impossible and Beyond, and a few other um, um, of the main brands of processed burgers, and it just really made it stand out. I mean, it's so much better.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. So it's we just I personally love the idea. I love spices. I love the history of spices. Um, I love smelling them, and I hope people love it as well. And I hope people, you know, learn how to cook, or don't feel as exhausted by the thought of cooking and preparing meals. And I hope they take pride in doing that.
Was that a particularly kind of pertinent mission for you as someone in the kind of vegan community who's, you mentioned earlier, over the last kind of couple of years, been thinking more whole foods, plant based? Do you almost see it as a kind of a remedy, or I mean, you mentioned there it's kind of like a alongside an accompaniment to, but almost a bit of a remedy to the processed vegan foods that are out there, kind of like there is another way, like there is
Yeah.
the whole food plus spice. Do you see that as an important part of the mission?
I do, and I want to be careful because I don't want it to be. I guess not careful. Um, I don't want it to be you know, whole food, plant-based or nothing. That's
Yeah,
certainly not my philosophy. I think certainly the people that are ill and have type 2 diabetes, which there are a lot of them in this country, I think yes, it's like, do or die, right? Let's get that under
yeah,
control, or obesity. Um, but like I said, if somebody wants to go out for burgers and vegan fast food, I think that's great. I think that
yeah,
if that's what's going to um, uh, if you need to do that or want to do that. I mean, occasionally we go out and we have we have a client that we love their food, and it's a vegan fast food joint and we love it, and we go out and we have pizza sometimes. But um, my personal journey is I wasn't feeling well even on a vegan diet in my
mm,
early 50s, and I did this whole food plant-based program. I felt fantastic, but I was so bored with just putting on oh, what were we allowed to put on? I did like a 20-day immersive. It was like soy sauce, a little bit of soy sauce and a little bit of balsamic, right? Or mustard. And I'm like, I can't eat like
right.
this. I I'm Latina. We live for food. My husband's half Italian. We like to eat. We like good food too. You know,
Yeah.
that's where we spend our money. It's on our rescue animals and food because we just love to eat. So.
This episode of the Bloody Vegans podcast is brought to you by Veg One from the Vegan Society. Veg One is the nutritional vitamin and mineral supplement designed for vegans by vegans. Launched back in 2005 and rebranded in 2021 with a fantastic new plastic-free package, Veg One provides nutritional support alongside a healthy and balanced vegan diet, all for an affordable price. With a 6-month supply available for just £12.70, Veg One will cost you little over £2 a month and offers EU nutrient reference values, or NRVs, of vitamin B12, D3, iodine, selenium, B2, B6, and folic acid. Veg One is chewable, it's affordable and reliable. You can take it once a day. It's available in fantastic orange and blackcurrant flavours. Super easy and convenient, completely plastic free. So why not head over to vegansociety.com, search for Veg One, and take your next healthy steps into the world of veganism.
What was the process like of starting a business like this in terms of like the research of the product itself? Because if you said to me, you know, start a business in spice blends, I honestly I wouldn't know where to start. I mean, even if I found myself relatively proficient in the kitchen, that's one thing. Coming up with the right blends and so on, and understanding spice in the way that you've come to is a difficult thing. How did you go about doing that?
Well, I'll tell you this. I've um, I've worked on probably about 200 brands. Some of them were Fortune, 500 brands, and they had already, been established. Some of the like SAP and Honda, and worked on Sony, and so those brands obviously, unless they kick a new product, they have a new product launch, like Honda would have a new, car that they would launch. That's kind of a well-oiled machine. But as I started working for smaller agencies, they would have new brands. So I've worked on every category imaginable: healthcare, finance, automotive, CPG, and I've started, and pretty soon I became, really involved in helping startups. So I feel like when we came to this decision, and this was honestly, it was 8 months ago, maybe, when I said this felt right, the seasoning blends felt right. It was easy for me. It was just easy. I knew exactly what to do. I am in advertising and marketing and PR, so I know how to work with creatives for the
Mm,
design. I know how to bring things to market, so it just made sense for me to do this, and my partner Jim, he's the PR person, uh, and really we just needed to. I had the vision, and as soon as I had the vision, and within a couple of months, we had our spices formulated, we had the packaging done. Um, we had the website built. We had all those people in place, so I've done it before, I guess.
Yeah.
Long story short, or even longer, I guess, is we've done this before for so many people. It was time that we did it for us, and we felt there was a need, and it felt right.
How's it felt being on the other side of that particular fence then? Going from the PR, the marketing of other businesses, other people's visions, to trying to exact your own vision.
I love it. I love both because I love helping businesses that I care about, right? And there's a certain kind of like, well, I feel responsible for their business, but ultimately I'm not,
Yeah.
right? Um, and it's not the money that they're spending for advertising and creating their website and employees is not my money. We're bootstrapping this, and it is our money. But I also have a lot more control. Like, things just move. We don't need a decision by committee. I pretty much said, okay, this is it. And we've had, oh God, we officially launched January 1st, so it's only been a month, and we've had such great response from people, and people love our spices. We've heard from so many people that the packaging, the beautiful jars, and they just love it, and they're buying them for gifts for people, and so we know we made the right choice. We know that there's a need for it. Look, I've helped businesses that I really, at first I thought, I don't know, this is not gonna, this isn't going to make it, and we've helped them make it. So we're pretty confident this is going to take off.
I guess that experience is pretty reassuring. Having seen so many businesses through the journey, you can sort of try and evaluate your own and where is it at, and will it survive?
Yeah, exactly. It's like, I guess an analogy is if you were like, you've been building houses for, 30 years, and then you decide you want to build a house. It's like, well, I've got this.
Yeah, I can imagine. So yeah, but, unlike myself, you probably don't have anywhere near the same level of trepidation I would.
Nah, and our motto was let's do this, and let's do our best, and let's put out the best product for the right reasons, and let's treat all of our vendors and all of the people that are helping us fairly, and see where it goes. We don't have any investment money. We're not kowtowing to anyone. We're just going to see how it goes, and we hope people will love it.
I'm sure they will, no doubt, absolutely. I'd love to pick your brains a little bit broader on sort of vegan culture, if you like, over the last 20 odd years. What for you have been the kind of the pivotal changes that you've seen? What are the big shifts? What would you attribute them to?
That's a good question. Big shift would be the money pouring in. I want to say celebrity, but there's so many wealthy people behind the scenes. So putting the money into some of the companies like Beyond Meat, because without that, it wouldn't have gone to market. And if it doesn't go to market, you don't have you just don't have those options. And we would have still been with the, stick your hand in the bucket and get the tofu out of the barrel. That's how the tofu used to be sold, in a barrel. So the influx of money from wealthy proponents. I would say celebrity. I'm not a huge fan of, I have a lot of clients that want to, get us, Billie Eilish, and it does, or Joaquin,
Yeah.
Phoenix, and like, nah. Great if they're out organically doing that, but I'm not a big believer in, attaching celebrity to everything. But people do listen. They have tons of followers, and people listen, and so I think that's one of the other key pivotal things. And then some of the just we were able to get some studies done that empirically show how much better it is for your health,
Mm.
and some other exposés and all of these films on Netflix and these streaming channels where they're such heroes,
Mm.
infiltrate some of these meat packing plants and some of these businesses that are harming animals, and having the proof, right, and
Mm.
having that proof spread socially through social media. We didn't have that before.
Yeah.
If had I seen that stuff when I was a teenager, that would have been the reason, not ego, that
Mm.
I had switched.
If you had to place a bet on, put your advertising revenue on, if you were kind of the chairman of veganism, if you like, and you had to stick your money in one area, either climate, health, or animals, which message have you found is the most effective to land with, say, like a US audience?
Yeah, that's it. That question happens a lot. It comes up a lot, and it's discussed a lot. Um, but I think it depends on generationally. There's the boomers, Gen X, which I'm Gen X. There's Y and Z, right?
Mm.
And I think the animal rights is certainly resonates more with the younger, Gen Z, Gen Y.
Mm.
Um, I think health is probably the older Gen X and boomers, because they're feeling it. You
Right.
feel it, right? If you just feel it. You're somebody my age, most people my age in our country are, if not on some type of diabetes medication, or you know blood thinning or whatever, they're on the road to it. So I think it really depends on who your core target audience is. I have seen studies that like what moves the needle, what turns people veganism. They've interviewed vegans, they being, I can't name specifically the studies, but I've read many. Climate is actually the last one
Right.
that moves the needle. It's typically health, followed by animals, followed by climate. Um, Perhaps not all the studies, but certainly the few that I've read. Uh, and it doesn't really, matter which one you're touting. I think it's all part of it, right? If
Mm.
something if you tout all three, or maybe there's others, you one of them will stick. So it doesn't need to always be just about the climate, or just about health, or just about the animal abuse. I think it's shocking, but some people don't really care that much about animals, and I don't know who. I mean, I know you guys just recently had a soccer player, Zuma,
Yeah.
who like kicked a cat, and there were people who were mortified by it,
Yeah.
right? Those are my peeps, because I was mortified by it. I have cats. I would, I think it's monstrous. And there were other people who were like, his cat's still alive, right? He's a great soccer player or
Mm.
football player.
Mm.
Um, so you do have people who just don't, they see it as they're lower on the totem pole. They don't have feelings. Maybe they've never had animals. And then of course you have a lot of right-wing Christian, people touting it says in the Bible, we have dominion, and,
Yeah.
but it's, so I don't see why you can't, use all three levers to get your point across.
Do you think you mentioned it about there's almost a political connection to the divide as well, that's emerged. Well, it's probably always been there, but has grown and feels very much like being vegan is something that's identified with progressive viewpoints in a number of and that, you know, nailing my own colours to the mast, that's probably firmly where I sit, is the standard stereotype of progressive vegan on the left. But I do wonder sometimes whether, and I'll give you the context. You probably are aware of Dale Vince, who's a big activist over in the
I've met
UK.
him.
You met Dale. I thought you
I
might have
met
done,
him.
which is why I
Yeah.
thought I'd mention Dale, because I thought you knew Dale. But he was only yesterday. He appeared on a news channel called GB News, and he had an interview with Nigel Farage, who's obviously like the
I saw that.
yeah. And it's
And he actually thanked Nigel. Yeah.
yeah, and it's just really interesting to me that he goes out of his way to reach across that political divide to places that, if I'm honest, if you said to me, "Would you like to appear on GB News?" I'd say no. I'd put the party line down and I'd say, well, that's the kind of, you know, the right wing Fox News of Britain. I don't want anything to do with it. Do you think that's an important part that we almost miss? Is that we become a bit entrenched in our viewpoint and then don't reach out, and then therefore don't have the capacity to spread the message as far as we could do? Or am I overthinking?
No, you're not overthinking. I am in your tribe, right? I am, left leaning and live and let live, right? I
Yeah.
don't care who you, not you, one sleeps with,
Mm.
or what your pronouns are. I just, I'm all about peace and love, right? It, it is, I can see the value in, in extending the olive branch and not being afraid to engage with the other side, um, because we could all easily get into our everything is tribal now, right? We have our little group of friends that think like us. We have, our things that we do, that are, we don't want to venture outside, and in a way that's a form of xenophobia as well.
Mm.
um, it's important, I think, um, to hear the perspective from the other side, because then you can at least learn how to maybe make your points to them and have them understand, and not be so close-minded. I have a I have family members who are right wing and conservative, and I think misguided, and I know
Mm.
they're good people. Um, at first, when all of this was happening, when Trump was elected, sorry to get political, but
I'll go
my
for it.
immediate gut reaction was to just say, you guys are idiots, and or um, maybe friends who didn't think like I did. Um, but I thought it was more important to show them that I'm not closed-minded, and I love them for even if they're misguided and whatever reasons they believe in what they believe. Hey, look, if I even some vegans are like kind of rub me the wrong way, and I'm like, I can't
Me
take it.
too.
I, so if I had to like just hang out with my tribe, I'd be super lonely, and I wouldn't get the perspective of what they're thinking, and they wouldn't get they would think, they wouldn't know, some of the facts that I know, so I think it's important that we all break out of our shells and kind of at least try. That being said, Fox News and some of these other places, I don't think I could go on. I don't want to be in the same room as some people, the whole
Mm.
Joe Rogan
Yeah.
thing and the disinformation. I was just
Understood.
like, oh, that's so gross. It's like, I don't even want to validate you by
Yeah.
engaging with you. I want keep my name out of your mouth, and I just don't want to see it. It also makes my blood boil, and again, I'm Latina, hot-blooded. Um, but I do think it's important, and I have friends who think differently. I have vegan friends who even think differently than I do, and I try to um, make points, keep a cool head. Have you ever tried to convince somebody of something? I'm just going to go back to my siblings, and you're worked up and you're like, but the animals, but the this, look, here's the video, and it does the opposite, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
They just are like, then they look at you as like cray cray, and you're in their face and you're telling them, what you're telling them is you are fundamentally wrong and bad
Mm.
for doing what you do, and so then they just build the wall up. So um, it's not the smart way to go about it, and I get it now, and yeah,
Yeah, I share all those sentiments. Feel much the same. You feel the blood boiling, and I've done so many times. I've been in those arguments, and then thought, have I actually moved this person any further forward on this view? Probably not. If anything, I might have entrenched them in that view and drawn a battle line up and made things difficult. It's so difficult though when you're passionate and you feel like you've had the scales pulled from your eyes and you're very, driven for change, as many of us in the community are. It's difficult to keep a lid on that, especially when you feel like the urgency of things like climate change, the urgency of the animal agriculture industry, and every day X amount of lives being lost and so on. It's really difficult to keep a lid on that and keep a sort of clear perspective on what does change people's opinion. Is it this way or that way? It's very difficult. So share some of those views.
yeah, it certainly is. And when you see things I've had, I'm going to go back to Scout 22 because the protagonist in To Kill a Mockingbird, the young girl, was Scout, right? And that's what,
Mm.
and V for vegan is the 22nd letter of the alphabet. So that's how why I named the agency Scout
Right.
22. Um, and yeah, so I had an early, okay, back to my train of thought. At an early age, I too felt a sense of wrong and right, and I
Mm.
felt I wanted to help the underdog always, and I
Yeah.
was the underdog. I was absolutely, I was, I grew up in an all white neighborhood, and I was Mexican, and I'm, a woman in advertising in the 80s and 90s. It was is so I consider myself the underdog, but I also, and the animals. That's why I rescue too many animals. I can't even tell you how many I have because I don't want to knock on the door, right? Um, so there are people that I've come across in this space that are in it just for the money, and they probably aren't vegan, and they're just like nasty people, right? But they
Mm.
see the dollar signs, and my immediate instinct was to call them out and tell them how horrible they are, and um, you know, e- e- not exact revenge, but just like
Mm.
I want no BS. I just want everything to be out. I wish I could just like say everything, my truth, and be damned to what's going to happen, right? But then we realize we need to eat, and the animals need to eat, and it's also not going to it's not going to do that what you think it's going to do. It's back to that
Mm.
whole like listen up everybody. You come across as hysterical if you're a female, crazy, whatever. If you're a man or a woman, you come across as a zealot. um,
Mm.
so there's ways to go about making sure that things are truth. The truth is out there. I'm a truth seeker, and I want what's good for people too. And it's not just it's the animals, but we're animals. I want to do right by everybody.
Mm.
I want the animals to have a fair shake. I want people to have a fair shake. Um, I want to. I want people to treat themselves better, to take care of themselves. And so again, back to the spices, that was another impetus for starting Watson's. Is I just want a good product, so I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it myself. I want something that's good. I miss like, okay, when I used to work for advertising agencies, we had um I sound like a grandmother, when I was, but it's true. Like, okay, we worked for agencies, big agencies like Gray and Deutsch and DDB and these big global agencies. And I was starting out my career, and I worked with art directors and creative directors who went to school for their craft, and they knew how to draw, and writers who again went to school for it, or they knew how to write great copy. Even the photographers, I mean, they were just beautiful photographers. The retouching, the time spent on things, right? The time, like, everybody was just so good at their craft, and I miss that. I miss that so much. England is known for pumping out good products. It just is. I've spent a lot of time in England and the UK, and not everything, but you have quality. If you get certain things, there's quality, and there's a like history behind making sure that people know what they're doing. Maybe they were mentored by somebody, or went to school for it. And there's just a lot of junk in the world. There's just
Yeah.
junk, things just flipping on a dime, and not caring about the ingredients or the process. And we were watching, because it was like National Pizza Day, so pizza was on everybody's mind. And my his family's from New Haven, Connecticut, and that's the best place in the country to get pizza. There's a few famous pizza places there that have been around since the 20s,
Right.
big Italian immigrant area. And I think it was Lyle Lovett, of all people, the country singer. He was talking about why the pizza is so good, right? And there's many factors. It's the oven, it's the tomatoes, but it's also the love. And when my mom, like, coming from Mexico, when she would cook for her family, we had a big family, and it she was a good cook because it was the alchemy. It was the love, and the, like, just everything perfectly blending, right, fresh ingredients, the seasoning, but it was just the love that was put into it, the care, the pride, the you know uh slowness, is if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It was all the whole alchemy of making a good product. And the older I get, the more I want to do that, the more I feel that I don't I don't need fancy cars. I want to leave something behind. I don't even have kids, so it's not like I'm, leaving a legacy for my kids. I just want to leave something for people that meant something to me.
I love that. Love that point about the alchemy of those, and food is one of those areas, isn't it, where those things are always there. You talk about it in terms of like craft and the world generally, and I totally agree. I think we have lost something in this sort of fast paced. I don't know whether it's tech or social media or a combination of the two, but it sort of seems to have put all of our brains on speed, and got us all on this crazy treadmill. And it does feel like we need to slow down, artisan kind of like approach to things. And I was very hopeful of the lockdowns and the pandemic in a sort of strange way. Obviously, there's tons of negative, and sadly, so many people lost, etc. But one of the kind of unintended benefits of that shutdown was just a little restock of your life, a little stock take of where am I, what's going on, what do I appreciate, what do I value. And one of the things that I think for most people I know anyway came out was cooking with your family, eating with your family are one of those things that's just universal. We all enjoy. That's what we're here for in a sort of way. So yeah, I think if you can add one of those components to that alchemy, you mentioned there about the seasoning. If the seasoning's added in with everyone else has just got to bring the ingredients and the love, etc., then I think we're
Yeah.
well on our way.
Yeah, yeah. People are hungry to connect, and certainly food connects people, Um, our blends, we have blends from we have a Latin blend, we two Latin blends, and then we have a Italian blends, and they mean something. It's like, for my husband's family, the Mexican blends, the Latin blends are, certain ingredients are things my mother used, and it means something. It's very meaningful, and I agree with you. I think that everybody's spread so thin, and you feel such, I don't know if you spend any time on LinkedIn, but you look at people's
Yeah.
profiles and they have like 8 different jobs. I'm the guru of this, and I'm the this, and I'm the this. And it's like, what's wrong with like doing 1 or 2 things well? Why do we have to be like the 30 under 30, the change maker and the disruptor and the this and the, like, just chillax, everybody. Just learn how to, follow your passion, do something well.
Yeah, yeah. I had strong ambitions during this lockdown. So I did really think, do you know what? I might just quit everything and be a carpenter. The idea of just making things in a workshop at a very slow pace, selling 1 chair a month or something, would be
Yeah,
joyous.
it's gonna be an expensive chair though.
Oh, it'd have to be. It'd have to be. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I was planning on being a good carpenter. That was the intention, but I'll stick with podcasting. I'm probably further along that particular line. So, anyway, Laurie, look, it's been an absolute pleasure chatting to you. Thank you for letting me bend your ear on so many different subjects, and thank you for introducing me to Watson's as well. Where would folks go about finding it? It'd be great to let them know.
Yeah, you could go to, right now we're direct to consumer at tastewatsons.com. We are being, I guess, wooed by a few specialty retailers. So it looks like later this year we'll be in a couple of specialty retailers, rather, in the States, mostly in California. But you can go direct to tastewatsons.com. And we have one other thing I wanted to say, because I am a native Californian. Love letter to California. This is the jar. Yeah, that's the jar. This is the bag. I love California. It's my home. I grew up here, and this is pretty much like a love letter to California. And proceeds for this, because we have a problem with wildfires, and our firefighters are heroes here. Percentage of the proceeds go to the California Firefighters Benevolent Fund to help displaced firefighters who have been adversely affected. And the ingredients grown, a lot of the ingredients grown, if not most of the ingredients grown, is grown here in California in our fertile land. So it truly is a love letter to California.
Amazing. Well, I'll make sure we get links to all of that in the show notes, and we definitely include that piece there around giving back to the firefighters in California. That's such a great cause. Laurie, look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, and I know just how busy you are, so I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.